Commencing transmission. Engaging scramblers. Proxy chain initialized. And now, live from his hidden base at the Earth's core, the future ruler of Earth, Doomcock.
My friends, I have seen the first 2 episodes of The Acolyte, and I stand before you today to give my reaction to them. This is not a full review, nor will it contain any major spoilers. All of that will come later. Additionally, I and my panel of pop culture pundits will be participating in an in-depth discussion and review of these first 2 episodes tonight on Pop Culture Breakdown on this channel at 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Pacific. But before all that, fresh off of watching both those episodes, I wanted to give you my initial reaction. So, how is The Acolyte? You know, for a woke show that hates Star Wars, excludes white men, wants to retcon the Jedi Order as a bunch of smug, corrupt assholes covering up crimes, and has a crazy chicken bamboo armor running around killing armed Jedi Masters with throwing knives and kung fu, it's not bad. I think this is one of the better Disney Star Wars shows thus far, which is basically damning it with faint praise, I know, though it's only 2 episodes in, and I suspect that the faint praise is just going to get fainter. It's not really a spoiler to tell you that The Acolyte is about a pair of identical twins, 2 women of course, what else, one of whom is killing Jedi. It appears, in other words, that one of the twins is relatively good and one of the twins is relatively bad. And that is an excellent analogy for how I feel about these first 2 episodes. Folks, in a moment, I'm going to say some fairly good things about these first 2 episodes, the good twin, and then I'm going to say some very bad things about the Acolyte, in this analogy, the bad twin. Ironically, the Acolyte has claimed it will move beyond good and evil into a kind of gray, amoral zone, completely going against what George Lucas originally intended for his saga, and that's going to be a huge problem for remaining Star Wars fans moving forward, though we only see hints of that in these first 2 episodes. But perhaps worst of all, I believe that this series is going to be woke 2.0. I believe that before it's over, it's going to enrage and disgust whatever Star Wars fans remain to watch it, and I'll explain why I say these things and what I mean by them in a moment. But first, let's talk about the few things I liked about The Acolyte before I get into the shit I hated. My friends, I am an honest supervillain, and that means if the facts warrant it, I will give the devil his due. I was fully anticipating that these first 2 episodes of The Acolyte would be peak cringe Disney Star Wars, with the obnoxious things the cast has said about it being the gayest Star Wars ever, the hints that this show will retcon the Jedi Order for good, and I do believe all of that is coming. But I must tell you, in all honesty, it wasn't the worst Disney Star Wars ever in my opinion. As God is my witness, I hated Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ahsoka, and Book of Boba Fett far worse than The Acolyte, at least thus far. Indeed, this is one of the few Disney Star Wars shows that hasn't bored me to tears. The scripts and the acting and some of the combat in these first episodes were relatively engaging. Book of Boba Fett and Ahsoka had me literally squirming in my chair with sheer fucking boredom, longing for the tedium to stop. Kenobi had me feeling hatred and fury that Star Wars was being so perverted and warped and abused under KK. Andor was much better, but it wasn't Star Wars. It was some other sci-fi show that kind of looked like Star Wars, but wasn't really, as there wasn't an ounce of fun or joy to be found in it. The Mandalorian is the only Star Wars show that actually ever managed to capture any of the true spirit of Star Wars. And then there's The Acolyte. As hard as it is to believe, folks, while The Acolyte is also devoid of anything approaching fun or joy, it does have a few things in it that remind me of the prequels, namely, the character of Jedi Master Saul. I really, really like this actor. He evokes the quiet dignity, grace, and nobility of Qui-Gon Jinn in Phantom Menace, my all-time favorite Jedi. Master Soul brings a warmth, humanity, and thoughtfulness to the role that I found fascinating and very surprising. In general, the cast overall is pretty good, even though it's fundamentally racist, pointedly and deliberately excluding white males other than a few villainous or guilty characters who need to be jailed or killed. The good twin, Osha, is played by a woman of color who brings an easy charm to the role. All the time watching her as the good twin, I couldn't stop thinking, well shit, if you wanted to try to sell us Mikey Spock, this actress would have had a much better chance at not making Star Trek fans vomit. Sonequa Martin Green hasn't the talent or spark to do anything in the role but repel people, and while the idea of Spock having a human sister is a fucking abomination, at least this actress didn't go to the Home Depot Lumberyard School of Acting, like Mikey Spock did. Sadly, she is not nearly as successful playing the evil twin. She can't seem to deliver evil lines with any weight or authority, and there were times when she was just so meh and casual and everyday as May, the evil sister, bordering on Valley Girl level mundanity, it just took me right out of the show. She's okay so long as she's not delivering any lines as May, but once she opens her mouth, she seems more like a petulant little girl than an avenging devil. But overall, the acting and writing at least held my interest. For once, I wasn't bored, and so I'm thankful and frankly astonished. I was also surprised that the combat sequences weren't as god-awful as the trailer suggested. There's a core stupidity at the heart of the combat scenes here. The idea of a chick wearing bamboo armor bringing throwing knives to a lightsaber fight is so laughably bad it's pathetic. One gets the sense that the Jedi in these fights with her are clearly holding back and not really taking her seriously. Kinda like the scene in the Warner Brothers cartoon Drip Along Daffy, where a gunslinger sees a wind-up toy soldier on the street, and he laughs and he picks it up, and it blasts him in the face. That's how I felt watching these fights. Why don't the Jedi just use the Force to pick her up, turn her around, and push her face first into the wall until the Jedi paddy wagon can come drag her ass down to the precinct HQ? May's lack of gravitas is a big problem. But within that tainted context, tinged with mind-blowing stupidity, at least the action sequences are good, in a lower-key Matrixy kind of way. Overall, I was surprised that I was able to find so much to enjoy about these first two episodes. So that's the good twin. Now, let's get to the bad. There's a shitload wrong with the Acolyte, my friends, but let's start with this insidious point. The Acolyte is woke 2.0. Now, what do I mean by that? Lately, the powers that be in Hollywood have recognized that woke isn't working. It's turning off audiences and driving them away. It's killing franchises and nuking box office and streaming profits, and something has to be done about it. But what? Ending wokeness in Hollywood and going back to just telling great stories? Fuck no. No. What they're going to do is boil the frog more slowly. They make the first few episodes as good as they can, keeping as much of a lid on the woke crap as they can stand to do, keeping it as subtle as possible. But then, as the show progresses, they start slowly amping up the woke until finally it reaches boiling toxic levels late in the show when it's too late to unsee what you've seen and they've logged their watch hours. A strong disturbance in the Force tells me that massive wokeness lies ahead. I suspect the gay stuff, the anti-male stuff, the hatred of Star Wars, the Force, and everything George Lucas stood for, all of these things I sense lie in the future. Don't get me wrong, the woke is there right now. It is mentioned that Osha and May had two mothers, so check off the gay checkbox there with a smile and a song, and the cast is incredibly diverse, except of course for white guys. White males need not apply to the Acolyte as it turns out. Most of the cast is female, whatever males are around are ethnic and diverse, all of the authority figures in the Jedi Order are women, and they boss the men around, belittle them, laugh at them, albeit fondly at this point, but make no mistake, This shit is woke, and it's only going to get woker. For example, the one white male Jedi in the show thus far is a pale guy named Torben, and he just levitates all day, every day, oblivious to the world, until the evil May tracks him down, blaming him for a tragic event in her past. And guess what? He apologizes to her. The disposable white guy agrees with her that he needs to be punished. See, what this entire series is going to be about is how corrupt and criminal the Jedi are as an institution. In short, Headland and Kennedy hate the Jedi, hate George Lucas, hate fun, and hate Star Wars fans, and the Acolyte is all about taking a shit all over all of the above. Turns out, all that stuff about Jedi Knights being the guardians of peace and justice in the Old Republic was all propaganda. The Jedi use the Force to interrogate, to force the truth out of suspects. The Acolyte wants to paint them as bullies, oppressors, elitists using their abilities to keep the common folk down. The plot of the show seems to suggest that the Jedi are even criminals, covering up their own crimes. Look, folks, it's pretty clear here that the Acolyte has come to demolish Star Wars as we know it. Forget about good guys and bad guys as presented in the original trilogy. The Jedi are basically going to be revealed as the patriarchy, corrupt, false, and perpetuating their own power and authority at the expense of the oppressed non-Force users. They're elitists, they're colonizers, you know the drill. The Acolyte is going to demolish the Jedi Order as we know it. I imagine they're going to fuck around with the very nature of the Force. They're going to be very feminist, probably slip in a bunch of queerness when we're not expecting it. And ultimately, the Acolyte is going to do away with the concept of good and evil as absolutes. They've already hinted at that vis-a-vis the so-called evil twin May. Apparently, she's out for revenge against the Jedi, though we have no idea what they did as of yet, but I think they're going to try to make both of these women the heroes of the show as they give the Jedi and their troublesome little Force too. What for? Putting them in their place, for their smug arrogance, their villainy, their gatekeeping. In other words, although these 2 episodes were some of the best Disney Star Wars thus far, ultimately, the Acolyte will fuck Star Wars worse than ever. That's my prediction. That's what I see coming, my friends. I'll keep reviewing this show, and as I said, we'll be reviewing this show as a group tonight on Pop Culture Breakdown at 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern, but have no doubt, Star Wars is still dead, no matter what these clowns wind up doing. After all the years of abuse at the hands of Disney, nothing can stop that now. From the center of the earth, this is Dictor Van Doomcock bidding you all, my friends, stay angry.
Ha 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 ha.